Dunn is here, and I don't believe either of your opponents are, so
There's a lot of events. So
there are way too many events tonight, so
yes.
we picked a bad
There was absolutely something else tonight, at least two that I was invited to, and I chose this one. Okay, excellent. I'm Bert Dunn. I am running for Erie County Sheriff. I'm an independent candidate running under the Law and Order line. And I currently work in the Erie County Sheriff's Office. Been there for 13 years. I started as a deputy sheriff, worked my way up the ranks. Number 1 in the sergeant's exam, number 2 in the lieutenant's exam, and I'm currently number 2 in the captain's exam. I currently serve as a day watch commander in the position of lieutenant. So I'm very familiar with what goes on a day-to-day basis. But a little bit about myself. Grew up here in Erie County, went to Orchard Park High School, graduated in '88. Continued on my education at the University of Buffalo. Got a bachelor's degree in business administration. I got an MBA from Canisius College. And in between that, I got married to my wife, Michelle. She's here with me tonight. 18 years we've been married. While I was doing my MBA, we had 3 children. I worked 2 jobs. And she made it really clear if I decided to go for a PhD that we would not be married. So I chose not to. So in the whole time I was doing all this, I was building my career in the sheriff's office and trying to make myself more qualified in everything we're doing. And I always had a goal of becoming a supervisor in the sheriff's office. And I've always had a goal of making the sheriff's office better. Love working there. But anybody who's ever been involved in an organization where they start moving up the ranks and they see an opportunity to make things better, but you're limited. The sheriff's office has been around for nearly 200 years. We've never had somebody from within to ever be sheriff. It's always been an outsider. And unfortunately, when you have outsiders who have never done the job, they're really not familiar with the challenges that go into getting the job accomplished on a day-to-day basis. So right now, we're faced with this big challenge, just like every other agency. And Joe has to deal with these issues on a regular basis when he puts these budgets together. Every year, there's dozens of departments that are all vying for the amount of resources that the slightly over $1 billion budget the county has wishes for. And we all want our piece of the pie. We all want to be able to make sure we're providing all the services we can. And it's always difficult. The sheriff's office eats up a good part of the budget. It's a little over 10%, I believe, right now, because we're well over $100 million. Last year we were 101, and I believe the jail management division alone this year is going to eat up over $100 million. And one of the things that keeps coming up is this utilization of resources, efficiency. We have a holding center that is responsible for watching prisoners on a short-term basis that eats up a tremendous amount of money. And we have an overtime issue. And it continues, and it never gets better. And we keep hearing that, oh, we don't have enough people. Well, we get more people, and the overtime keeps on growing. The reality is we're not efficient. We're not making the changes that have to be made to make it better. We're not getting everybody on board to participate in improving the situation. You know, when we sign up to take this job, we agree to work weekends. We agree to work holidays. I work every other weekend. It's part of the deal. But if you look at the scheduling, you'll see an inordinate amount of people who are off on the weekends. Why? Well, because they don't want to work weekends. It's tough. That's the way it goes. But as the sheriff is in power long enough, eventually he owes favors. And clearly that's what we got right now. We have a situation where we're much more concerned with taking care of individuals, letting them work when they want to work, working the assignments that they want to work. Forget about the mission in general. We police 21 towns and villages on a daily basis. We may have 70 or 80 people working in the sheriff's office doing various jobs, and I have 11 people on a daily basis to provide direct 911 services to the towns and villages, including some in Joe's districts. So in District 3, which that's Elma, Marilla, Wales, and Aurora, we kind of help out if they need extra help. I've got 2 deputies. That's it. So if there's a domestic call, They're done. There is nobody else. The next call, I got to pull a car out of District 2 or a car out of District 4, and then they run without. Even though we have other personnel available. We need to consolidate our resources and get them back doing the mission that needs to get done. On the weekends, we need to have detectives working. They shouldn't be working Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Crime doesn't stop on the weekends. You know, criminals don't go up and go, oh, geez, I can't commit a crime because it's Saturday. They don't care. Crime's going to be committed anyway. The interesting thing is inmates are still going to be in the holding center on the weekends, and the correctional facility on the weekends. So if you deliberately set your schedules to make sure that you don't have enough people working, what is going to happen? Well, you're going to have overtime. So when a guy goes to leave at the end of his shift, he's going to be told, sorry, you have to work, you're forced. Now, if your family has an event for the next day, what are they going to do? They're probably going to call in sick. And it exacerbates the problem, makes it worse. Running the sheriff's office, you need skill sets that you're just not going to learn as a police officer. You got to bring them from other places. That's something that makes me a little bit more unique. Not only am I an experienced police officer, an experienced police supervisor, educated in business and management, I run a business. My family owns Bert's Bikes and Fitness. I've run it since 2004, all while being a police officer, all working full time. We've grown our business, and we've experienced all the ups and downs of the economy. In fact, a lot of our growth came during the banking crisis of 2008. Since then, we've grown our business by 2 times. Why? Because we use good management techniques, we empower our employees, and we're innovative, and you have to be. The sheriff's office needs new innovation. It needs new blood. It needs somebody who actually cares, that understands the challenges we're facing, and is willing to make a difference. And above all, that's the only reason I'm running. I'm going to work in the sheriff's office, win or lose, for the next 6 years until I'm even eligible for a pension. But right now, I would like to make a difference. And the only way you can do it, you can complain about it and do nothing, or you can step up and do something. That's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of questions were submitted, and I'm going to start with those. And actually, just to let you go back a little bit, the question is about overtime.
Yes.
What would you do to reduce overtime in the holding center?
Yes.
Specifically.
Specifically the holding center.
And you will have 2 minutes.
Excellent. The holding center does present a unique problem. Because of the transience of the people who come through there, we're constantly having a population go through. The purpose of the holding center is to get people arraigned. So oftentimes, well, they have to be sentenced. They're unsentenced inmates is what it really is. Okay? But our big goal when we put people in the holding center or don't put people in the holding center as a watch commander, it's really to just get them in front of a judge. So we try to, as a commander of the sheriff's office, I try to reduce the number of people I actually put in the holding center. So a lot of times we'll call the judge and say, hey judge, can you come and arraign our prisoner? And we'll even ask you to arraign a prisoner for a neighboring town if we can't find one, because it's about efficiency. If I arrest somebody in Elma, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to drive them all the way to the city, drop them off at the holding center, only to have the judge call back and bring them back. It's no different. We want to get it done. So if we have someone from Aurora that's been arrested, we want to bring them to see the judge right away, because that's kind of the purpose of a warrant, and that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish. Get them in and out of the system as quickly as possible. But the overtime issue is started with the way we deploy our personnel. There's individual assignments in the holding center that we have mandated spots, and we have spots where people are not necessarily inclined to actually contribute to reducing the overtime. And I know I'm running out of time, but I'll hit on another issue. We need to look at other scheduling methods. In the patrol division, we use a 12-hour shift. The 12-hour shift has reduced overtime requirements in the patrol division, because instead of covering 3 shifts, you're only covering 2. So that's one method, but there's a number of things we can do. I'll end it with that.
Okay. This question has to do with reducing crimes such as burglaries, vehicle break-ins, vandalism, and graffiti.
Excellent. So right now, when any of these crimes are committed, this is pretty much goes on in every part of Erie County. If you have a burglary committed in your house, a vehicle break-in, you've had graffiti, you've had vandalism, you call the police Police come out, they take a police report, and they make a referral to the Detective Bureau. There'll be some investigation done, they'll work some sources, and if they're real lucky, on a very rare occasion, they'll actually catch the bad guy. That's because we're reactive in our policing methods. There is another way, though. There's proactive policing. But you got to do things a little different. First off, you've got to consolidate all your resources. Instead of having people doing all these little specialty jobs and not being responsible to actually reducing crime, they got to work together. So you got to integrate your patrol division, your detective bureau, all into working towards the same goal. But we have a tool in Erie County that we're already paying for. It's a mapping program. And the mapping program maps crimes, where they're occurring, the frequency, and you can develop patterns to see where they're actually happening. Currently, Buffalo and Cheektowaga are actively doing something about it. We are not doing anything about it in the Sheriff's Office, nor are many of the other towns. And criminals don't care about borders. They don't say, oh my gosh, I can't stop, it's Aurora, I got to go and keep my crime over in Elma. Or I got to keep my crime in West Seneca. They don't care about that. But when you look at these patterns, you can actually develop techniques to identify where they're happening and actually proactively go after them. You can create decoy units, you can put together a street crimes unit, and you can work all your different investigation units and patrol units to actively attempt to catch the bad guy and effectively reduce these types of crimes.
Thank you. And the final question that I have has to do with keeping our children safe in schools, particularly with this, the shootings that have been rampant around the country. What would you do as sheriff?
Okay. I was a DARE officer earlier in my career. DARE is Drug Abuse Resistance Education. We go around and we teach young children about peer pressure, about the consequences of drug use. We talk about gateway drugs so kids recognize what's going on. That's a great program. There is another program out there called SRO, School Resource Officer. Now, this is where we actually place police officers right in the schools. Some towns use them, some don't. The Sheriff's Office has one. But these are great ways to develop information. These are great ways to develop intelligence and, more importantly, have someone boots on the ground to know what's going on. Now, another thing that's going on throughout the police community is active shooter response training. One thing I will give the current sheriff credit for is he sent our entire day watch to active shooter response training. We need to do that continually. These are skill sets you need to actively engage a situation to stop it. There's a lot of mental health issues out there. We don't know where these are going to occur. But we can be prepared to reduce these tragedies by improving security in the schools. We can make sure that our patrol divisions are trained in how to respond. We can train our teachers in how to recognize problems and methods they can use to make children safe. We can work with school security to limit the entry into these schools. And we can keep building awareness in the community. Hopefully, as people become more aware of these problems, we're going to identify these people who may be at risk of going off the deep end and committing these types of things. And maybe with more education and information, we'll get information from the public to help us intervene earlier.
Yes. Okay. I've just been advised that your opponent, Mr. Dobson, is here. So I invite him.
Hi, Dick.
We didn't know you were here.
He just walked in.
You just walked in?
I apologize. I started in Buffalo, went to West Seneca, back to Buffalo, now I'm in East Aurora.
Okay, well,
Tank of gas.
welcome.
Put me last, and everyone else.
No, I'm going to give you, actually, sir, I'm going to provide you with the same opportunity that I did with Mr. Dunn. I will ask if you are pleased to come up here and make an opening statement, as he did. That's what we afforded him. There were 3 questions that were asked of him. I will ask the same of you.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
Oh, that's kind of sweet. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dick Dobson, and I'm the Democratic candidate for Erie County Sheriff. To be brief, with my bio, was born and raised in Buffalo, served my community and my country all of my adult life. Started off in the United States Air Force, and then went into the Sheriff's Department where I served for 32 years. I came up through the ranks as a deputy, a sergeant, a lieutenant, a watch commander. I was a detective sergeant, and I was also a detective as I was a lieutenant. I served a number of years on a federal drug task force where I enforced not only the state laws, but I was sworn in by the Justice Department to enforce Title 21 of the federal statutes, federal drug statutes. While I was on the job and raising two children, I went to night school, I went to day school, and I earned my baccalaureate degree, my bachelor's degree in criminal justice at Buff State. Since retiring, I have done a number of things, one of which I'm very proud of, was serving with the United Nations, a peacekeeping mission in a little country called East Timor, which is about 250 miles north and a little bit west of Darwin, Australia. It's in the Indonesian archipelago. The place was a mess. The Indonesians had come in years ago, massacred thousands of people. There was 80% of the infrastructure of the country was destroyed. Crime was a problem. They still fought tribal warfares with spears and bows and arrows. That was the downside. The good side was I did deliver a baby one night over there, and little Richard and I kind of bonded on that night. But anyhow, Mr. Dunn and I pretty much did the same job. So we were deputies, sergeants, lieutenants, and watch commanders. And I'm sure, although I didn't hear it, probably most of the things that he said about the Sheriff's Department and about the programs, I would definitely agree with. What I'd like to talk about, aside from that, is basically what makes a police officer, okay? A police officer is more than just a good cop, more than somebody who goes out there and makes his arrest and earns his pay that way. A police officer also has, he must also, or she must also have a heart and compassion. I have said before that a police officer basically is two persons. One is a person with a strong heart who has the courage to go out there in the middle of the night and do a dangerous job and enforce your laws. The other person, I think, is someone who has a soul, the spirit of a peacemaker. And that's what your police officers have to be. They have to make good judgment calls. Calls that are based not only on a sound knowledge of the law, but are also tempered with a degree of humanity. That's what I want to take back to the Sheriff's Department. Many of those officers have those qualities already, but sometimes they forget because the morale is so low. Because you have a sheriff who doesn't show up as much as he should, they think, well, if they don't care on top, why should I care down here? And then with morale suffering, performance suffers, and they don't do the job as well as they could and should be doing. The overtime is oppressive. Am I out of time?
No.
Oh, okay.
We allowed Mr. Dunn to speak longer, so.
And he's a very eloquent young man, I will say that. But anyhow, the overtime is oppressive. They're tired, they're worn out. Their home life suffers because of it, and it's something that will have to be addressed. There are programs out there that I would like to institute that I haven't heard anyone else speak of, and that is with our county correctional facility. Now that's a facility where you're doing 1 year down, less than a year, okay? These are not the greatest people in the world, but then again, they're not in state prisons. They could be worse. Some of them are young people who got off on the wrong foot. What I would like to do with some of those younger people that are in our county facility is go to our colleges and see if there are intern teachers that could come out there and sit down with some of these people and teach them how to get through a job interview so that they know how to conduct themselves when they do get out to try to find gainful employment. Videotape that. Show them what it's like. This is what you look like when you're going in here to apply for this job. Is this the image that you want to project? Or can we work on that right here and right now? I think that's a positive thing that may possibly cut down on some of the recidivism coming back into prison. The suicides in the jail. I've had people tell me, give them more rope. Who the hell cares? They're crooks, they're criminals. You know, ladies and gentlemen, that is not who we are. As human beings or as Americans, we care about other people's lives. In that jail, a hardened criminal who's been in and out of prison for most of his adult life, he's not going to commit suicide. This is a revolving door for him. I'm going back to see some of my friends in Attica. It's the young man or the young woman who has some problems, mental problems, if you will. A man or woman that's been deployed too many times in a war zone and has post-traumatic stress disorder. A young man who has a drinking or a drug problem and his girlfriend broke up with him and it's the end of the world. These are the less fortunate people. These are the people that we have to look out for, that we have to take care of. Sheriff Howard said, I'm not going to turn my jail into a hotel. It's not a hotel. It's a jail, okay? But if you're going to put people on the floor, on cement, they should have a mattress. They should have a pillow. And when they wake up in the morning, they should have a toothbrush and some toothpaste. And these are things that should have been provided by the commissary and by the telephone accounts. This is something that I'm going to look into when I become your sheriff, because I think there's something wrong, something that needs to be investigated. Now,
Thank you.
I don't want to be up here.
Center. What would you do to reduce overtime at the holding center?
I hate to sound simplistic, but we have to hire more deputies. This overtime situation has been going on for years. We keep ignoring it. Look at it this way. The roof is leaking. You don't want to spend $100 to fix the roof. So it rains, and now your furniture is destroyed and the roof is still leaking. We have to spend the money to fix that roof, that leaking roof. Okay? It has to be done. Simple question. Simple answer.
Okay. What would you do to reduce crimes such as burglaries, vehicle break-ins, vandalism, and graffiti?
And graffiti? These are things that we need community involvement, okay? Your police officers, your deputies, your troopers can't be everywhere at once, okay? We need the eyes and ears of the public. We need people who are willing to get involved, to make a 911 phone call, to let us know when some kids are vandalizing, when they've got spray paint. Burglaries, look out for your neighbors. It's as simple as that. These are not situations that are rocket science, okay? This is basic police work. We could use more deputies on the road, that's for sure. But then we'll always need more policemen.
Thank you. And the third and final question had to do with ensuring the safety of our children in schools, particularly in light of the many, it seems like many shootings that have been going on in various schools around the country.
3 or 4 years ago, I came up with a program that I submitted to Sheriff Howard, where I made a suggestion that we have an untapped resource out here, and that is retired police officers who are willing to give up their time or work at a basic salary to come into the jails. Now, these are police officers that have already retired, that are seasoned, and they're a little bit more mellow. They're a little bit more responsive to the needs of our children. To go into school, to keep an eye on things, to act as mentors. But the big problem that we face, and I think this is the crux of the question here, how do we protect our children from tragedy? You can't legislate against tragedy, but you're going to have to use your head. Some time ago, the Sheriff's Department sent its SWAT team out to Clarence, and they did a mock thing of a shooter in the school. It looked great. It was great. It looked fine. The SWAT team showed up, and bells and whistles, and toys for the boys, and everything was wonderful. But you know what? That's not what you need. You're not going to stand around and wait 35, 40 minutes, 50 minutes to an hour for a SWAT team to show up. while they're in there shooting children, 2 or 3 police officers are going to sit in a parking lot waiting for SWAT? Not going to happen. Bert knows, I know. It's a dangerous job. And sometimes you have to put your life on the line. I know if I'm the officer in that district and they're popping caps in the school that I'm 3 minutes away from, I'm going in. I'm going to wait for another deputy. I'd like to go in with another person. But I'm going in. I'm not going to stand outside and hear gunshots and hear children screaming. So let's put all this fluff off to the side and start talking about the realities of life. Policemen sometimes might have to make the ultimate sacrifice. But we pay our firemen to go into burning buildings. Our policemen sometimes are going to have to go into harm's way too. And I'm sure, or any one of them, you know that as well as I do. They would risk their lives for our children. That's our most precious commodity. I'm sorry, I'm not soapboxing.
That's okay. Are there any questions that can be asked of both of our candidates?